Well, good afternoon. I'm Jeff from Three Old Guys, and I'm going to do a box opening. But not exactly. It's more of a Ziploc baggie opening because it's a Dark City Games tactical war game that I want to share with you. And the reason that I picked this one, it's called Vietnam War, is because somewhere down the line I plan to do kind of a retrospective on different games about the Vietnam War. But also, I'm hoping that Hector and Al and I can all play this one at some point and give you a feel for how the game actually flows. It's not a very long game, and there's a lot of different scenarios in it, so it should be fairly easy to sit through a playthrough of it and get a feel for what Dark City Games is doing with their tactical combat boot system. Alright, so let's go ahead and take a look at the game now. We're looking at Vietnam War, and obviously it's a tactical game about the Vietnam War. So let's go ahead and open this thing up and get stuff out and see how it all works here. You'll have to pardon me, getting these things out of the Ziploc baggie is always a challenge. But once we get that done, there we are. So the cover of the game is actually the cover of the rule book. So I'm going to remove the counters and map for a moment, and then we're going to talk about the rule book and how it looks. Okay, obviously the front page. And then in here we get into a definition of the unit counters, components, game sequence of play, pretty much a standard set of war game rules, really, if you look at it. There's a bit of a terrain guide for the map. And they talk about transport, line of sight, elevation, again, the sorts of things that you need to play a tactical game. They handle artillery a little differently, and tanks and things like that when they're using their main gun, in that they have range bands. Small units with rifles and pistols and machine guns have ranges. The artillery and tanks have range bands, and those bands extend their range quite significantly, of course. They talk about fire combat, they talk about rolling, excess dice, anti-tank weapons, cover, stacked units. You can stack units. They talk about opportunity fire and same-hex combat, which is basically hand-to-hand combat. And then they talk about how infantry assaults armor, how an AFV overruns artillery, morale. Again, pretty standard for a tactical game. You would find the same set of rules in Advanced Squad Leader. However, in this book, you'll find that you've got about 10 pages of rules instead of 400. And they even include air power and armor, in the game. So the bottom line is these, while small, these games are not simplistic. They do a pretty good job. And they have some options that you can talk about, so on and so forth. Head-to-head attack, how helicopters work. And for Dark City Games, if you've ever heard of them before, their thing is solitaire games. You can play them with a group of people, but they're called guided adventures kind of things. Well, in this case, this is their very first. They published some other tactical war games like Barbarossa and Pusan and so on and so forth. But this is the very first one where they've actually come up with some rules on how to play it solitaire as well. So George Dew, the president of Dark City Games, tells me that this absolutely works solitaire. We're going to try and prove that at some point. And he also says that that's kind of the wave of the future for their tactical games. They'll be making sure that you can play them by yourself if you can't come up with somebody else to play with. Then we go into the scenarios, and there are a surprisingly large number of scenarios in this book. Like I said, 10 pages of rules. Starting on page 11, we go into the scenarios. We have a beginner battle, which is a way to train yourself, and probably the one we'll do for our filmed version of this. Then they talk about the Ia Drang Valley, and they'll tell you how to lay out everything and discuss what the units are and where they're located and what the objectives of the battle are. But one of the interesting things is they actually do include an aftermath for these scenarios. Obviously, the first one it's not a huge thing because it's just a generic fight, but they'll talk about the aftermath of the Ia Drang Valley, and you can see that that's quite a bit longer. They have a search and destroy mission. They have Rolling Thunder Bolo, the air campaign. They also have Quezon, and we'll look at the map in a minute so you can see how that works. They have the Super Gaggle, which is February 25th to April 9th of 1968. They have the Battle for the City of Wei, and you're going to see something interesting on that as well. Hamburger Hill. And then when you get done with the scenarios, which is basically 6 pages of scenarios, they then have a glossary of terms for easy reference at the back of the book. So again, this set of rules is amazingly helpful. especially to a new player. They also included designer's notes. Now, of course, war games mostly have designer's notes, but here they went into detail as to why they did things so that you can better understand how the rules work and why they work the way they do. And I, for one, really appreciate that, because basically it kind of lays out what your expectation should be in terms of how the rules work. They also talk about why they chose what pieces they did, and they dedicated it as well. So back of the manual, kind of the rules manual, which is the packaging, basically gives you a rundown of what the game is like. And again, we have this available in our store if you're interested. Before I move on to the map, let's take a quick look at the units. You can see we have numbers of different aircraft. Again, that's part of the Rolling Thunder thing, but even the NVA has aircraft as well. Each unit represents a squad or an individual vehicle or a gun, as the case may be. In the case of these little machine guns, basically that's the machine gun team that functions there. And you also have this H4 Plus is an artillery, off-map artillery that can participate in the fight as well. And these are the NVA, these are the US/ARVN forces, so kind of gives you a feel for what the units are available. You'll note that there are a lot of helicopters down there for your helicopter insertions. All right, let's turn to the map. There's actually two maps with this game, and we'll talk about the second one in just a minute, but this is the typical kind of map that you get with all Dark City games. It's basically some generic terrain kind of laid out, and then what they've done is they've set it up so that you can kind of simulate specific fights, so like the Adrang Valley or Hamburger Hill and so on and so forth. And basically the terrain is described as jungle, and then there's cleared places that are landing zones and so on and so forth. The various numbers are used in the scenarios, and letters are used in the scenarios to kind of give you a feel for where everybody's supposed to deploy for the scenario that you're playing. And really, these are two separate boards. This is board 1 and this is board 2. So this one's more or less flat jungle where a landing occurs, or a road, and this one is pretty much a hill type assault. You'll note the what appear to be trench lines around there. Fundamentally, they're a cover that can be used by the players to evade the enemy's fire and improve their own. The second map took me by surprise when I opened this thing. This is board number 3. And basically what we have here is an urban environment, which is where you'll play the scenario for Hue. And it's pretty fascinating for them to have included it this way. I think this is one scenario I want to try playing to see how this works. But right now I'm just impressed that they went to the trouble of including a second map for the urban things. That was outstanding. And that's pretty much it for how the game Vietnam looks, and as we open the box and take it out of the package. My experience with Dark City Games has been that they do an excellent job on their games. And the tactical games are kind of different from their typical run-of-the-mill stuff, which is more like RPG programmed adventures, which you can also GM for your friends or actually run friends through as a solitaire team, if you will. But the bottom line is this one, their tactical games are more classic board war games where one opponent faces another opponent. This will be the first one that's designed for solitaire, and I'm going to explore how those rules work. Now, as we do the playthrough on this, we'll talk more about that stuff, because we will be doing a playthrough video for this game in a few weeks. But also, this one will appear again when I do my Vietnam War introspective on Vietnam War games. And that pretty much concludes today's discussion of the board game. And don't forget to like and subscribe.